Hi everyone, Marco and Quote here for a brand new episode of our special edition, Lore of the Universal Century. For today's episode, we're returning to the Legacy era in an attempt to answer a particular question, which is... Yep, in this video, we're going to explore the top 5 Legacy relatives to the venerable mobile pod ball. Machines that fill similar niches, reuse some of its parts, or are direct but distant relatives, all the way out of the far fringes of the Universal Century. But let's start by the beginning. What is exactly the ball? Codenamed RB-79, the ball, also nicknamed Mobile Coffin or Watermelon, was a mass-production space-use mobile pod, deployed by the Earth Federation Space Forces in the decisive stages of the One-Year War. A low-cost space mobile weapon designed both as a stopgap measure to stabilize the space front and to complement the incoming proper mobile suits of the GIM series, the ball was thus this quantity over quality machine, meant to fill the ranks of the Earth Federation forces for the incoming space campaigns. To achieve this, the ball based itself on an extremely simplistic and cheap design, being a turnaround of the civilian space pod with additional armor and military-grade equipment, with its prototype form, the RX-76 prototype ball, being little more than a refurbished space pod with a Gundam cannon slapped on its back. As a primary offensive feature to counter Xeon's more advanced mobile suits in space, the ball thus equipped its first physical weapon, a low-recoil cannon believed to be either 180mm, 120mm, or sometimes even 90mm, capable of turning on a 360-degree axis and with a 70-degree elevation range. This rapid-firing cannon could thus fire 21 shots before needing to be refilled and provided sufficient destructive power to decently damage enemy mobile suits. Aside from this cannon, the ball also based itself on the use of a secondary feature derived from its spacepod origins, a set of manipulator arms finished by two pinchers called the Magic Hands. Those Magic Hands could be used to anchor the mobile pod on various surfaces, pick objects, move debris, and perform manutention duties. And although they were absolutely not adequate to equip any type of weapons whatsoever, they could still on occasion be used as such out of desperation. Unlike mobile suits, which were powered by an ultra-compact thermonuclear reactor, the ball instead relied on more standard fuel cells, providing it with a much weaker total output of 400 kilowatts, less than half of the opposing Zaku's generator output. Now, this combination of features surely already draw a bad portrait for the ball, making it seem like hardly an upgrade over the various spacecraft the Federation was still fielding in the earliest days of the One-Year War. This is, however, to be taken with a grain of salt, with the ball coming with a lot of hidden merits and features that are worth mentioning. First of all, the ball was cheap, crazily cheap, to the point of one ball costing as much as less than a quarter of the price of a regular GIM, meaning an entire ball platoon could be formed for the price of a single standard mobile suit. This, combined with the fact that the ball shared manufacturing plants with the civilian space pod, made it extremely easy to produce on top of being cheap, enabling the Federation ground power plants of Jaburo and its space power plants such as Luna 2 to pump hundreds and hundreds of units in record time, enabling the Federation to ultimately field nearly 1,200 units as part of Operation Star 1. Secondly, the reliance on the ball on fuel cells while severely stunting its output also had the blessing in disguise of not requiring special cooling equipment when in transit, enabling ships lacking such equipment, such as the Salamis class, to serve as adequate carriers for ball platoons, greatly expanding both the ship defenses and the ball operating range, killing two birds with one stone. Thirdly, while the ball actually lacked any kind of MBAC systems unlike mobile suits and mobile armors, it instead compensated with a cruder alternative called the High Maneuver Vernier system, the ball equipping a total of 24 rocket motors capable of explosively burning solid pellets of fuel, instantly generating incredible thrust in a particular direction. This system, while less reliable overall than MBAC and extremely fuel hungry for the ball, however enabled it to dodge with incredible degrees of high mobility, giving it sometimes greater thrust than some advanced mobile suits, such as the Rig Dome itself. Finally, the ball also came with excellent tracking add-ons, with its sensors outranging the opposing Zaku mobile suits, making it a perfect mid-long range fire support unit, an excellent support fighter to assist GIM units, but much more vulnerable when on its own against enemy mobile suits. Nonetheless, the ball proved its worth, often as a fiery exploding ball, during the entirety of the 1 Year War, with balls being responsible for some of the earliest Federation Pyrrhic yet still victories in space as early as June UC-79, and providing excellent support for the totality of Operation Cembalo on Star 1 in December UC-79, spawning variants left and right as the 1 Year War drew to its end. After the war concluded and mobile suit development became the priority for the rest of the UC-80s, the ball and its related line slowly but surely faded into obscurity, although some units remained in service, primarily as construction tools. By the UC-90s, the ball, and mobile pods in general, had become a thing of the past in most places, a trend which continued as the second universal century started and UC reached the 100 years threshold. Nonetheless, some both relatives and similar concepts still managed to emerge across the miniaturization years and budget cuts that shaped the late UC, the units we are going to present. Enough blabber, let's get to our variants. Let's start our list with a quite obscure bolded copy from the hellish depths of the most unforgettable late UC series, the Crossbone Saga. I thus introduce to you the Monoball, an armed space-use mobile pod manufactured in the Jupiter sphere by the late UC 130s. A rather obscure mobile vehicle introduced in the very final pages of Crossbone Gundam Steel 7, the Monoball is a very unoriginal mobile pod design, allegedly produced by the Jupiter Empire to perform manutention duties and repairs on their Jovian installations. Similar in dimensions to the 1 Year War era ball, the Monoball however adopted an asymmetrical design, introducing a single 2-pincher manipulator arm on its underhull, seemingly able to extend, and with a greater articulation of movement, alongside a single cannon on its top, which is mostly considered to be a physical weapon, but sometimes theorized to be a beam gun of some sort. Unlike the ball that introduced most of its rocket motors on its sides or underhull, the Monoball instead installed a similar propulsion system on its rear, with 4 thrusters being visible. Finally, the Monoball features 2 eye-like protrusions, which are sometimes said to be welding cannons, sometimes theorized to be thrusters or even sensor parts. Now you're probably feeling disappointed with the Monoball, with the mobile pod being hardly an upgrade over its 1 Year War counterpart, except if the cannon is one day confirmed as a beam weapon. However, the Monoball technological level is actually quite understandable, notably with its similarities to another Jupiter Empire mobile pod, the Mono Arm, which is a larger mech designed for maintenance and colony repairs. What I'm trying to convey is that both the Monoball and Mono Arm are actual technological fossils from the early days of Jupiter colonization, mobile vehicles absolutely not tailored for war, but rather just patrolling pods and colony crafters. Now about the deployment history of the Monoball. That thing only ever saw combat by the end of the Second Jovian War, with the anti-Jupiter Empire resistant movement, spearheaded by Greystocks, an aging Judo Ashtau, deploying many Monoballs to overwhelm with numbers the now defeated and demoralized Jupiter Empire forces, taking back control from the Dogati's loyalists. Now, realistically, the Jupiter Empire forces with their more advanced Aranas and Batalas would have shredded all the Monoballs, but the mobile pod's arrival was coupled with resistance operators taking control of Jupiter Empire installation from the inside, as well as Jovian soldiers suffering from great demoralization due to their super laser failing and being destroyed by the Steel 7. Well, it's not a surprise the soldiers folded against such low quality mechs. With that being said, let's move to another ball variant, this one a bit more substantial. This time we are speaking of a way more successful ball-inspired concept that emerged in the late UC. Meet the Gwigsy, a colony-controlled petite mobile suit and a bestseller machine across the entire Earth sphere. A mobile pod-inspired design, officially a mini-mobile suit, the Gwigsy was one of the earliest and most commercialized products from Rendager Heavy Industries, an emerging late UC corporation also responsible for the creation of advanced high-quality mobile suit designs such as the Tigre series and the Cucaracha. Designed for anti-riot purposes to be deployed to police units or local colony defense forces, the Gwigsy was a surprisingly effective design, mixing decent but still brain-dull firepower, mobility, and overall versatility. As a unit designed to avoid inflicting too much damage because of its purpose, the Gwigsy was only equipped with a ball-like physical weapon on its top, a 360-degree rotating machine gun with additional sub-arms being installed in its rear, enabling it to change the magazine of said weapon, enabling the Gwigsy to transport 2 spare magazines and actually be able to make use of them during pro-launch operations. In terms of mobility, the Gwigsy made use of a surprising design, mounting 2 arms finished by 3 manipulator fingers and a pair of smaller legs, the Gwigsy being able to use its arms as 4-arm legs, like a chimp, who enabled it to run faster on the ground and dodge obstacles. When required to patrol spaceports or even outer space locations, the Gwigsy could also assume a 0G configuration, folding its legs and arms to adopt a semi-cruising form, relying on its 2 back thrusters to cruise as a regular mobile pod. This versatility and effective design, although completely inadequate to deal with any kind of mobile suits, still made this petite mobile suit a reliable machine to deal with riots, crime, and other kinds of jobs requiring neutralizing small vehicles, eventually making the Gwigsy a bestseller, with the petite mobile suit being adopted by many colonies across the Earth sphere. In the UC-150s, the Gwigsy was still very much in use in the side-to-Earth space, with semi-independent colonies like Macedonia fielding their own greyish units as part of the local garrison. At that time, even the Zarskor Empire, despite being in control of their own ballistic equipment and space patrol armory, was not above deploying their own Gwigsy units, with Zarskor secret services using their own orange red version of the petite mobile suit for some of their most unsavory jobs. Time to move to the next one, and rewind 20 years before the event of victory. Another non-ball compliant but still ball type security machine. For this one, we return to the Jupiter sphere to present a machine introduced in the original Crossbone Gundam manga, an unnamed gremlin-esque mobile suit usually referred to as the Jupiter Empire Security Mobile Suit, the Cucaracha. A petite mobile suit similar to the Gwigsy at the time in service in the Earth sphere, the Cucaracha, Spanish for cockroach, was a small-scale surveillance and patrol unit, deployed by the Jupiter Empire in the early UC-130s in some of its frontline installations. A machine with direct ties to the Mobile Worker-derived Batala series, mainstay mobile suit of the Jupiter Empire at that time, the Cucaracha was a machine that reflected the Jupiter Empire design philosophy, being perfectly tailored for duty in 0G environments. To move around, the Cucaracha mainly relied on 2 large hover rotor units, enabling it to achieve stationary flight in low gravity blocks, while also introducing a pair of 4 legs finished by 3 crude fingers, to gallop and climb around Jovian installations. Unlike the Gwigsy, which introduced crude arms unit to supplement as running limbs, the Cucaracha instead added a pair of long arms with more refined 3 manipulators, enabling it to catch human targets in its grasps. Arsenal-wise, to perform its security duty, the Cucaracha introduced a weapon similar to the Gwigsy's, an inbuilt and fixed machine gun unit, although this weapon could still slightly adjust its barrel to lock on targets. Final detail, the Cucaracha also introduced a rather interesting detail, the traditional Jovian cat eye mono eye sensor, which has raised a theory in Japanese forums that the Cucaracha might have been one of the EMS-01 to EMS-05 models, the various models the Jupiter Empire produced before their EMS-06 Batala. From a deployment history standpoint, not much is known about the Cucaracha, with only a handful of units appearing early on in the original Crossbone manga, being sent in the pursuit of Tobiya and Seabok, at the time infiltrating a Jupiter Empire supplied base. Now, I know some of you will question the validity of the Cucaracha being included in this ball video, saying it is more like the Gwigsy, a late-to-see petite mobile suit rather than a mobile pod. However, the Cucaracha is clearly a Gwigsy clone, which was itself intended as a ball clone in the Victory Gundam designing stages. So... Fun fact about the Cucaracha to close that part, but that model was actually never named as such in the entire Crossbone series, with the brown coloring and naming being instead proposed by Shibuya N, one of the recurring mech designers of the Crossbone series. Both paint scheme and name were presented back in 2021 as part of one of his calendar gacha collections for all Crossbone mechs on Twitter, where he also confirmed that Hasegawa had greenlit the name, but still warned the audience not to take it too seriously. Now, Shibuya N is known for crying aloud about not taking something seriously, then backward pedal at the first possible occasion, such as his Zakura naming effort that eventually resulted in multiple redesigns from him and a final naming for the mobile suit. So... Alright, no more debates. This time, let's present a proper fully fledged Late UC ball, also one more cobbled together than technologically advanced. A mixed build machine introduced in the Crossbone Gundam Dust manga, the Cannonball. A bike-type mobile armor obtained by combining the Galixon, a Zaskar mass production mobile armor with the venerable cockpit of the One-Year War era ball itself, the Cannonball was the fruit of both components being readily available in the Late UC era. The Galixon having been dispatched to a lot of Zaskar control colonies in the UC 150s, and the ball still being a very widespread civilian machine, making the combination of the two things quite an easy task for local remaining colony militias. Now, the real reason behind this combination can be traced to the technological decline that arose since the early UC 160s, with the death toll of the Zaskar War, resulting in a massive loss of engineers and skilled technicians, resulting in the maintenance-hungry miniature design becoming disfavored for cobbled-together machines, easier to deal for the remaining technicians around, the mixed builds. A common issue encountered by most mixed builds was the degraded and badly maintained thermonuclear reactors, resulting in many of them gradually losing over time their ability to use beam weaponries. The Galixon, a top-notch modern mobile armor from the UC 150s, mainly built around the use of a large high-output beam cannon, was of course affected by this issue, making local militias realize that unless something was done, their shiny Galixons would become inoperable in a couple of years at most. To fix the issue, the Cannonball was thus created, with the more crude fuel cell system of the introduced ball design, enabling the degraded Galixon generator to keep up. And although the beam cannon had to be removed, the bike mobile armor was essentially able to remain in service thanks to this small tweak. To address the removal of its main cannon, the Cannonball instead introduced a different physical base loadout, mounting either a single or double gun turret, or even the Gundam ground type 6 tubes missile launcher, and either a 5-barrel Gatling or the gun cannon 12 tubes missile spread pod on its side. Because of the crude slapping of the ball over the Galixon, the Cannonball was however forced to be a dual-seater, with a pilot remaining in the original Galixon cockpit, while a gunner instead controlled the main weapon from the original ball piloting seat. Overall, the Cannonball eventually proved to be a quite successful mixed build, being still in use in UC 169 as the age of the warring space states raged, still fighting for colony forces, often in harassing groups. With the Cannonball covered, let's now introduce our last Late UC ball. Time to cover our last and most prominent Late UC ball, a little mobile pod directly related to the ball series. I am bringing forward the RB-133 Type 133 ball, also nicknamed the High Ball. An advanced mobile pod introduced by the Earth Federation Space Forces in the UC 130s, the High Ball was an unexpected return to the now near 55 years old dated concept of combat mobile pods, building upon the basic concept of its One-Year War ancestor while introducing various improvements all around. Most notably, the High Ball greatly improved its arsenal compared to its forebear, introducing a tripled version of the 180mm main cannon, giving it roughly twice its firepower, although these cannons remain physical weapons instead of switching to much needed beam-based alternatives. To complement this cannon, the Type 133 also introduced a feature the original ball would have greatly required, a pair of 30mm Vulcans, very useful to damage incoming missiles, small vehicles, and other minor nuisances. In terms of hand manipulators, the Type 133 strangely introduced a double version of the original ball magic hands, rather than using the way more adequate extended manipulators using the Type K and Type C. The result was, well, quite a decent space mobile pod, one that would have been absolutely amazing during the days of the One-Year War, but came around more than 50 years later. Now, the existence of the High Ball, while strange and seemingly nonsensical in Late UC, has however been explained in the lore, with some of Crossbone mechanical files highlighting the reason behind its existence. See, as the UC 130s proceeded with massive budget cuts for the Federation forces, the Earth Federation top brass was eventually forced to compromise to organize their forces with reduced spending, forcing them to adopt the so-called high-low concept to try to balance and standardize the cost of each deployed squadron. At that time, the Shinri had succeeded in mass-producing their star mobile suit, the F-91 Gundam, which was in itself way more costly than the mainstay James gun in use in the Federation forces, thus making full squadrons of F-91 Gundams possible but bankrupting compared to regular units. To solve the issue, the high-low concept thus introduced the extremely cheap highball to complement F-91s in mobile suit forces, forming together more economically affordable platoons, with the highball providing fire support for the high-tech F-91s to take the vanguard, a configuration not too dissimilar to the 2 James 3-ball squad formation once used during the One-Year War. In such formations, the highball was thus able to shine and perform adequately, although its standalone performance left much to be desired, leading to the unit being widely unpopular with Federation soldiers. As for the highball deployment history, it is known that an early prototype version of it was already around in the early UC-120s, with this early model mounting only 2 cannons instead of 3, and lacking the signature Vulcans of the later mass production model. The ball Type 133 was extensively used in the final days of the First Jovian War, fighting alongside the Federation mass production F-91s, G-cannons, heavy guns and James guns to deal with the odds of assaulting Jupiter Empire forces. How long that thing was used afterward is not exactly known, but boy do I hope it didn't remain all that long in service. And with this video comes to an end. Marcon Code out.
But who will survive?